dead. He died last year. He was
Right, exactly. So I was supposed to be done at 1, which like never quite happens. Exactly, right. Like then I get something like this, which is totally fine. It's just like when they're like, hey, we don't put it for overtime. And I'm like, oh well,
That's okay. I don't mind.
I'll just not work on Fridays.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
No, I mean like I'll just go. You know, if that happens, I just will go in post and just figure it out. But it's fine. Although yesterday, like I read through one of the books in your play, and then while I was like, fade to music. Here we go.
It's the old black man.
I'm like, please stop. No, I don't need this. Yesterday felt like a Monday, even though it was actually weird.
I'm trying to think for something. The first one that comes up.
Oh, nice. Wine companies. And you're now.
Gotta go.
But thankfully our fees caps are only like 7 or 30 at a time. Yeah. So as long as we can get through right at my house, you like yeah, as long as we can get through like 2 or 3 stories that have to be yeah, they're really small. They're really small. Right, yes, good. Which we do the topics with their in the box. Or we do, but that is some shorter ones, an hour, so it's like free to travel for free. We should do them longer. Go for 2017.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
How's it going? We ready? Thank you all for being here today. Earlier this morning, my office filed a lawsuit against Purdue Pharma, Allergan, Cephalon, and Janssen Pharmaceuticals. In putting this lawsuit together, we believe these companies are culpable for the tragic, heartbreaking number of Oklahomans who have become addicted or who have died as a result of the opioid epidemic in our state. By waging a fraudulent, decades-long marketing campaign to profit from the suffering of thousands of Oklahomans, these companies have made in excess of $10 billion a year, while creating a generation of Oklahomans who have become addicts, convicts, or who have met their death from opioid overdoses. According to the Centers for Disease Control, in 1999, there were 11.78 opioid-related deaths per 100,000 people. In 2009, that nearly doubled, reaching 20.63 per 100,000 people, surpassing car crash deaths in Oklahoma. The lawsuit filed today in Cleveland County alleges on numerous counts that these companies violated Oklahoma's Medicaid False Claims Act, the Consumer Protection Act, and have created an ongoing public nuisance. The lawsuit claims companies knowingly marketed their drugs as safe for chronic pain management while downplaying the risks of opioid dependency and overstating the effectiveness of the drugs. Company representatives engaged in deceptive trade practices by disseminating false statements and material to doctors and pharmacists, and by omitting the results of academic reports related to the medical necessity of opioids. Companies also used what were presented as independent third parties, including medical doctors, to tout the legitimacy of the drugs to treat chronic pain. We believe that in reality, these independent parties were paid by the companies to market the drug and provide pseudo-scientific support for the effectiveness of opioids while downplaying the risks of addiction. As a result, the state and Oklahomans have paid millions of dollars for prescription opioid dependency due to healthcare costs, excessive prescriptions, substance abuse treatment services, substance abuse treatment services, ambulatory services, inpatient hospital services, and emergency room services, as well as impacting taxpayer dollars expended on a daily basis with respect to law enforcement. In the lawsuit, we are seeking the following remedies: a declaration that the company's actions and practices violated Oklahoma law, an injunction against the companies to stop misrepresentations and false claims in the state, payment for damages and penalties, and all other relief to which the state is entitled. Today, we begin a fight to hold these companies accountable, slow the opioid crisis gripping the state, and build a healthier Oklahoma. I've made a decision on behalf of the state of Oklahoma to retain as lead counsel in this litigation former federal judge Mike Burridge. It's been my pleasure to work with Mike, both work with him and against him in legal matters around the state. I got acquainted with his son when I was working at the Land Commission. He was in the state Senate. Worked with his brother, Steve, when Steve was state auditor and I was at the Land Commission. And again, it's been my pleasure to work with Mike. The state should be very confident in this decision, because in Mike Burridge, we not only have somebody who is a former president of the Oklahoma Bar Association, former federal judge, a member of the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, a distinguished and well-credentialed lawyer, but Mike is also a victim, as is his law partner, Reggie Whitten, of this crisis. Both have lost close family members. So the state's not only getting somebody to lead this lawsuit who's got the credentials and the qualifications and the ability to be successful on our behalf, they also have somebody who's convicted, who's been deeply injured by this crisis. So I'm very pleased to have Judge Burridge again as lead counsel, and working with his firm, working with Whitten and Burridge and the other lawyers that he's engaged. I just want to resolve with all of you today that we're going to be successful in this. We're going to recoup the taxpayer dollars that have been expended, and this is going to end. So with that, Judge, do you have any comments? And then we'll be happy to take some questions.
First of all, General, I appreciate the confidence that you have placed in me,
Sure thing.
Reggie, and the firm. This lawsuit is about money that the taxpayers have been out because of the treatment, but it's also about much more. The practices that these pharmaceutical companies have engaged in, the lives they have destroyed through their fraudulent conduct, their fraudulent misrepresentations, has to be stopped. And that's going to be a part of this lawsuit. So it's about getting the money that the taxpayers have been burdened with, substantial sums of money, but it's also to change the behavior of these companies. They need to be honest when they make representations to doctors about the effect of a drug. With opioids, the doctors were lied to. I don't know how else to say it, that they were not addictive, or less than 1% became addicted. They put out scientific studies. They had groups, the American Pain Academy and so forth. All of these were funded by the drug companies so that they could line their pockets with billions of dollars. So we're going to do everything we can to stop that kind of conduct and to recover the burden the taxpayers have had to incur. And we're going to fight hard, and we're going to make a difference in what happens in Oklahoma and hopefully this country.
Thank you, Judge. We'll be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Mike, you said you're seeking payment for damages and penalties. How much are we talking, and if you're successful, where does that money go?
So we'll be building a damage model as we proceed with the lawsuit. Our calculations are that it could be in the billions of dollars. That money is going to be returned to the state, again, to hopefully deal with some of the fallout that's occurred. We do have budget problems in the state, and frankly, I think this is part of the reason why our revenues don't meet our expenses.
So this would go to general revenue?
Well, that's all going to be worked out. I don't know that it would go to general revenue. I don't know that it would go into a trust. That's all something that we would work out during the pendency of the lawsuit. But the important thing is it's going to be returned to the taxpayers.
Why file in Cleveland County?
So this epidemic isn't just an urban, isn't just a metropolitan epidemic. It's all over the state, rural, small towns. And we felt like Cleveland County was a more representative venue, It's made up not only of urban areas, Norman, but they're small towns and a lot of rural, a lot of farming, a lot of rural parts of Cleveland County. So we just felt like it was more representative of the general population of the state and the people who've been affected.
What is the payment for Mr. Burridge and his co-counsel?
Mr. Burridge has been retained on a contingency basis, and the formula in that retention agreement is consistent with other contingency agreements with firms that we've reviewed on behalf of the state.
Percentage?
It's a sliding scale. It's an open record, and we'd be happy to supply it.
Is your litigation modeled after what other states and entities, and I think one of them is the Cherokee Nation, have done along these same lines?
We'll be working closely with the Cherokee Nation with the prosecution of their lawsuit. Ohio, Missouri, and Mississippi are the other 3 states that have sued the pharmaceuticals. There have been a number of governmental subdivisions who sued them. So we've certainly taken lessons, and we've reviewed the approaches of the other states and the other entities. And so this is an informed decision about this litigation.
Judge, how has this personally affected your family? The Attorney General mentioned that you've lost a family.
Yeah, my brother David's daughter was the victim of.
To your niece. Thank you.
Is there any multi-district litigation going on at the federal level that
No.
this might be combined with?
No, there's not. These cases are filed in state court. Most of them are filed in state courts. Sometimes there's attempts to remove them based upon preemption, but a lot of them have been remanded and remain in state courts, and that's what we hope the path that this takes, that if it is, removed, that we will be successful in a remand back to the state court.
Our theories of recovery are based on violations of Oklahoma law.
Yes.
Are there any similar states or any cases that have come to completion that we should look up?
Not to completion, but there are cases that have been, taken up to the federal courts on removal procedures and been remanded.
Has the federal government been involved in this sort of litigation or heightened regulation to deal with this issue?
I don't know that they've been involved in any litigation about it of this type.
I'm sure you're gonna hear the argument at some point that the drug companies are providing the drugs, but the doctors are overprescribing them. Aren't the doctors in some way fault?
Well, our view is that the misrepresentations made to doctors, the fraudulent marketing that occurred, is the principal basis for the abuse of these drugs.
The drug companies made a conscious effort to make representations to these doctors about opioids. And not only did they make representations, they sent out alleged scientific evidence about them, set up third-party groups to tout their effectiveness and safety. So the doctors were doing what the drug companies told them was safe, and some of the patients have suffered tremendously because of this, and some of them have died.
Is it possible there could be?
Right here and then over there. Go ahead.
Could there be a victim's compensation pool set up if there is a resolution of this case favorable to Oklahoma? Specifically, if a person had an addiction to opioids and died or was injured in some way, if the state prevails, could they come and seek part of that money for themselves?
Well, there's a larger policy discussion that needs to occur in this state with regard to how we deal with corrections, specifically with regard to addiction. Voters of the state made a decision that they were going to treat possession crimes differently last fall, that they were going to be treated as misdemeanors as opposed to felonies. So let me just finish here. And I think that's an important decision, and we honor it here in this office. But the gap here between how we're treating those crimes and how we're dealing with the illness that has spawned those crimes is something that the state's got to address. And honestly, if we're successful, and I believe we're going to be successful, the settlement ought to be in large part dedicated towards rehabilitation, so towards dealing with the addiction, dealing with addictions as illnesses as opposed to crimes. And so there's going to be policy development on the back end of this lawsuit with regard to how the money's spent. My expectation is that we'll work closely with the governor and the legislature. But again, that policy development piece is going to be part of how we conclude this lawsuit, how the money's spent. You've got to include policymakers with regard to that. And my priority is going to be that we've got to invest more in rehabilitation in this state.
There seem to be parallels in what you're doing here and what the tobacco litigation did 25 or 30 years ago. With the allegations that you're making and the rehabilitation that you're suggesting be the result of a win.
Well, I don't think it's apples and apples, but I do think that there are some analogies and there are probably some good lessons here. You know, we just can't let companies dehumanize the population in the way that these pharmaceuticals that we're suing have. I mean, you almost feel like these deaths are just statistics on a spreadsheet.
Do you think the argument that these companies are giving false information to doctors, do you think that could have hurt your case against the Midwest City doctor who was charged with 5 counts of murder?
No, I don't. You know, our information in that case is public record, and it's important for us to treat that case separately from this litigation. This is civil litigation. That's criminal. That's a criminal matter. Dr. Nichols is innocent until proven guilty, and we need to let the information that we have in the district court honestly speak for itself with regard to that case. But we're confident with regard to the charges, and we're confident with regard to the responsibility we have to hold her accountable for the decisions she made with regard to overprescribing those drugs to patients.
Could you, now that I know it's filed in Cleveland County, I'll be able to find it easier, but the 4 companies you named, I believe it was Purdue Pharma, Allergen, was that the second one? I apologize, I just want to get this right. I want to ask you a question about the companies.
So there are families of companies here, but generically, let me just get those for you so I'm able to answer your question with some precision. Purdue Pharma, Allergen, Cephalon, and Janssen Pharmaceuticals. And then there are other named defendants in the lawsuit that are subsidiaries or related companies to those that I've named.
Of those, maybe the 4 big ones that you named, what are the medications that they, or the drugs that they particularly made? And I'm asking this because there are numerous synthetic opiates and all sorts of things, and then there's obviously methadone and other Suboxone and other things like that. I'm just trying to determine what drugs you're particularly talking about when you're talking about opiates.
Judge, you want to handle that one?
OxyContin is on the top of the list, and they're all listed in the petition, the names that they have, and then there's also the generics. And so, but it's the opioid drugs, the OxyContin and so forth.
Off the top of your head, you know whether Suboxone or methadone or?
I do not.
Right here, and then you again. Okay.
Oh, so I actually have a question for you, Attorney General Hunter. And would you mind like moving closer to the mic? Sorry, that's like a jerk question. So what would you say to someone who might be right now struggling with opioid addiction, or have a family member or friend who's struggling about this lawsuit?
What would I say about this lawsuit?
What would you say to them? Yeah.
Well, there is, in my view, insufficient opportunities, insufficient access to rehabilitation services in the state that we need to invest in. We've got difficult budget challenges, and I'm conscious of that. And part of the motivation behind this lawsuit is to give the state the ability to provide those services on a more comprehensive basis. But my heart goes out to people whose family members are struggling with this. As a youth sports coach, it was heartbreaking to see little boys grow up. And as you're, coaching them and teaching them how to hit and throw and do things that little boys do, and they become teenagers, and for whatever reason they get exposed to this, and it's just heartbreaking. And I don't consider myself a victim, but I can't tell you how many friends and associates who've had conversations with me since I began talking about this and shared their testimonials, if you will. So again, part of this lawsuit, part of the motivation is to help the state have funding to invest more in rehabilitative services.
Like, I know you can't give specifics, but kind of timeline it for us. What happens next? When do you expect to go to court? If it goes to court, when do you expect to get some type of offer then?
Counsel?
Yeah. Well, it was filed this morning, and discovery will be issued. The summons are going out today to the drug companies. We will serve discovery, and that will be in the form of documents that they have, and there'll be some third-party discovery also to non-parties. We will get the documents, and we'll probably take some depositions, and, they may remove it, and that timeline is, could take 30 to 90 days. But we plan to be aggressive. The discovery responses are 30 days. We're going to try to hold them to those discovery dates. But we want to see the evidence. We want to see the documents. We want to take the depositions of these people. So it's not going to be anything that happens real fast, because I'm sure that they're going to oppose the discovery request. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discovery fights that the court will have to referee and make decisions on. But we will get there. And once we have all the discovery, then if they want to discuss resolution of the case, the Attorney General is in charge of this case completely, and we will have those discussions if they want to have them.
Ballpark it, what would be a fair resolution? If they came to you today and said, we're ready to write a check, what would be a fair amount?
I would not put a dollar amount on the table right now.
Thank you all.
Appreciate y'all coming.
Yeah, appreciate it a lot.
Barbara?
Question for you.
Mhm.
A policy standpoint, how do you determine who you're gonna sue, like the tobacco companies or pharmaceuticals or fast food manufacturers or gun makers? I mean, what criteria goes into your decision on?
So there's data in the public domain with respect to